One of the last topics that I want to talk to you about is money, or to be a little more generic, maybe currency, okay? Now, there are a lot of theories around what is money, and what does it represent? And here's one. Money is sort of like a voucher that represents your contribution to the culture. You make a contribution of some kind, and the culture, your community, gives you a voucher that represents your contribution. And that's not my theory, that's Walter Williams' theory. He's an economist at George Washington University. I kind of tend to like it because it's a voucher. I mean, let's face it, it's paper. I mean, there's no real kind of physical asset. But we do know that this is a common theme of currency over time. And when you think about Bitcoin and currency exchange and the need to normalize currencies across cultures to create balance in how they assess contribution, that makes a lot of sense. But there are modern currencies that are actually quite different than this currency. And you might be familiar with it. And I'll share it with you, and you'll probably say, oh, duh, Mark, I get that. There is a modern currency, and it is likes. Now, for those of you all, sometimes when I do this talk, I have who's 20, who's 30, who's 40. I won't make you all do that. But what I will talk to you about, though, is this reality of social contribution. And the currency of social contribution is the like. And for those of you who have kids, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Your kid will take a photo. And by the way, they don't use Facebook, they use Instagram. Facebook is where they go when they want to post photos for their grandparents. Instagram and other places is where they go that's where their pals are, okay? And they post a photo. If they don't get 100 likes in 15 minutes, they pull the photo. Now, what is going on there? There is something going on. Now, it's a two-sided equation, isn't it? It's a two-sided marketplace. Two-sided marketplace is very interesting. In this case, I post a photo, I make a contribution. My social community values my contribution in the form of currency called a like. Now, not all likes are created equal, so we'll kind of deal with that in a second. And people start giving me likes. My social value goes up, and it gets to a certain point. Now, it gets to a certain point, and I say, I don't necessarily want to reveal to the community that my social currency is not so high. I will pull that from the market. They pull that from the marketplace because they don't want people evaluating their ability to deliver value by their relative number of likes, okay? Now, then there are other people in their community that have a like that's really valuable. And they'll come into my office and say, Dad, such and such liked my photo. Now, that person's like is interestingly more valuable than another person's like. It gets more reaction. And isn't it also interesting that the folks that have those types of likes, those high-value likes, they know it. And they don't give them out very freely, do they? Right? And for those of you who do Twitter, they don't follow so many people, right? So this is an interesting construct that we're dealing with, and there are some opportunities to perhaps, I don't know if this is a problem to be solved, but maybe a situation to understand and perhaps exploit for various different reasons. Now, we'll kind of switch gears and talk about what is the next big thing. That's not a TLA, but that's a four-letter acronym. So TLA, I think what Linda was talking about, three-letter acronyms, TLAs. I worked for AMD, and we had a book on TLAs. I swear to God, we had a 8-page book that you got when you joined and said TLAs. It actually said TLAs on the cover. And you just page after page of the TLA, three-letter acronym, with it spelled out, with a definition. Anyway, that's a sickness that, thank God, has passed. So we have TNBT, messaging. There's something going on there. Social environments and social application environments. Once again, these are all places that people are participating. Of course, we have email, and if you all have seen recently Google's new thing they call inbox, which, by the way, is classic for Google to simply take an existing term and just declare ownership of it. Inbox. If there are any Google folks here, I'm sorry about that. I withdraw that remark, actually. Don't search my Gmail. By the way, did you know Facebook actually turns on the mic during certain times that you use it? Did you know that? Will turn on the microphone and listen to your conversation while you're browsing Facebook, and it will try to contextualize your news feed or your data feed based upon what it hears in the background. It might hear the television, it might hear music, it might hear other things. I don't know if y'all knew that. And you can buy little devices that you can stick into the headphone jack that will defeat the microphone. And a little sticker that you put on the video camera, because they can turn on the video camera without the light coming on. Is that freaking you out a little bit? Yeah, it's kind of freaky. Anyway, Google will come out and solve email for the next decade. And then there's all the kind of over-the-top comms stuff, and maybe the service providers will try to federating and get their act together with some sort of federated solution. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not really sure, honestly. But I think we have only seen the tip of the iceberg. And I know a lot of people freak out about WhatsApp and the $19 billion acquisition. And I suspect that we will probably see a $50 billion acquisition in the next 4 to 5 years related to social and messaging. Now, Facebook's already got, what is it, $170 billion valuation, I believe. We'll probably see an acquisition of $50 billion in the comms space that isn't this type of comms, it's more like this kind of comms, okay? And I honestly believe that we're just approaching that. In fact, Slack, I don't know if any of y'all track the funding events and everything. Slack is a company, has an enterprise comms app. They just raised $43 billion 6 months ago. They're about to do another round at a plus $1 billion valuation, probably will raise $200 million. Now, when you have a software company with 50 people and you have raised $43 million, you don't need $200 million. So what are they doing? What are these late-stage VCs doing? They're carving out market categories with capital. They're not creating companies with capital. They are carving out categories with capital. So there's a certain point where capital becomes a different type of weapon than just building something. It's establishing a marketplace and basically challenging someone else with a bigger check to come in and squeeze you out. So what am I'm announcing nothing. I'm actually announcing, no, I am announcing something. I don't know if I should say the word announcing, because the PR people say when you're announcing something, that means a certain thing, and so we can't announce. So I'm announcing that I'm not announcing anything before I mention something that could be an announcement compared to something else that you might hear. Does that make sense?
Sure, totally.
Okay. Did y'all see Shrek when the little guy tells what's his name, Pinocchio? They're like, Pinocchio, he doesn't want anyone to know he's lying. And so they're like, say something. And he's like, he said this before, she didn't say that before, blah, blah, blah. And everyone goes, what in the world did that guy just say? And he goes, his nose didn't grow, so it was good. Actually, what I'm going to tell you about is impact at Bell Labs. So what is impact? The idea is very similar to some of the threads of discussion that we heard in the earlier panel, that at Bell Labs, what we would like to do is participate more in what's going on, as opposed to being kind of in our little research silos. So we want to create a way that we can have an impact and that the community around us can have an impact back on us. And we think that there are 3 ways that we can do that. We're going to have tech talks, we're going to have panels, we're going to outreach into the marketplace more with mentoring. we're going to do these things called IP mashups. I heard the thing about hackathons, and I've done a number of hackathons. I won a hackathon in Vegas. I won a couple $1,000s. Actually, we won $15,000, and I thought they were going to walk in with chips. Like, slam them down on the table, you won! And then we would go into the casino and lose it all. And they didn't. And we walked up and they said, you won. They gave us like this piece of cardboard. Said we won, and we kind of stood there for a second waiting for the chips to show up. Never showed up. Like 4 months later, we got a check with a 1099. In the US, a 1099 is like a tax form. Here's your, and we just thought, oh, that was so depressing. And we did all that. You know, we stayed up, we had 40 Red Bulls, and we won. But we had nothing to show for it. I mean, honestly, we uploaded our code to GitHub and we were done. And we created a cool WebRTC audio media experience in the car, hacked GM's head unit, and they thought it was this crazy. At the IP mashup, what we're going to do is we're going to match startups that have a need with university and research that has a capability, and we're going to produce IP. That's our output, something that is tangible, that has value. And by the way, that kind of reflects the community goal as well. And the studio is a 2 to 3 week project-oriented solution pursuit where we will actually have something that maybe looks like a product. So these are the ways that we're going to engage with this, this ecosystem here. And Ireland is the place where we're going to roll this out. I'm very excited about it. And with that, I've completed my talk for the moment. I think we're going to have a panel.